So first off, you want to open up your Sony Vegas Pro. Once it has been opened, you can go to your file manager and you can drag the audio and video file into the box right here. If you don't have an audio file, then it's probably along with the video file. So you can just select both, drag it in, and this right here will tell you that it is loading. Now if you're like me and you have an outro, you can drag that in as well. So to get started, we want to drag the first one, the video file, down to this bottom layer right here. When this pop-up shows up, just say no, or you can say yes, but I usually just say no. Then you'll have your video. If you don't have an audio file, then it will probably pop up right here if you do have audio. If you don't have audio there, you can just drag your audio file, put it underneath it. You can use the scroll bar to scroll in and out, and then you can just plop your outro right there, or any other video pieces you have. Then depending on your video format, you might want to click on the settings right here, and here you can modify to how it looks. In my case, my video is 1080p, so 1920 by 1080 should work perfectly fine. If yours is lower quality, then you might want to change this to 720p, or if it's higher quality, you may want to change to 4K. Here's the frame rate. If you're doing gaming, I would recommend going 50 FPS or higher, usually 60. But 30 should do good if you're only recording at 30 FPS, depending on what FPS you're recording with. If you're like me and you're only doing some text-based thing and doesn't really need a good frame rate, then you can just say 15 or lower. You can click apply, and that will apply your settings. And here you go. Now everything is ready to go. So to start playing around, you can just press enter. Press space. If space doesn't work, you can just press this right here, and then space will work.
Welcome back.
But remember, every time you click space, it will bounce back to its original state. If you want to keep it where it is, you press enter, and that will keep it where it is. So if we zoom in here, as you can see, it stayed there. If I press enter, it stays there. If I press space, it bounces back. If you want to record your voice while you're in here, so you maybe want to record things afterwards, like after you film it, you want to add some commentary, you can click this record button right here, and you can choose where you want to save it. In this case, I'm going to save it on my USB, and I can create a new folder. And I'm just going to call it example. It doesn't really matter what you call it. And then I'm just going to say OK. Now if I talk, it's going to add it right here, and as you can see, it is talking a little bit right here. When you press pause, it's going to save it. If you don't like what you did, you can say delete. You want to rename this track so you can keep track of what you're doing, you can say rename. I'm just going to say done. Once you've done that, your voice would have been inserted.
Welcome back.
If you can't quite hear what's going on here, you can change the volume by, if you see that thing right there, it says gain 0, gain is 0 dB. You can make that a little bit lower, that will make the sound softer. Making it higher will make it louder. Same here, softer, louder. But since I can't quite hear this, I might want to make this one just a little bit softer. And if you look right here, there is a dB. If you make that a little bit higher, then this will be a bit louder. Now if you can make it a bit louder, make sure you don't make this too loud, because if it's too loud, then it will start to distort, meaning it won't sound correct. Now if I talk, it's going to... So yeah, you can select a part by just dragging, and that will select the part, and you can mess with that part if you want to. Take note that if you render, you want to remove this yellow part right here, otherwise it's just going to render the yellow part. So you want to remove that, so you can put it right there, or just make it as small as possible so it doesn't render it. So one of my top things to do is always to match my voice with the video. So as you can see here, there's Audacity. If I play the video, and I just continue like that, now I automatically cut my audio right here when I export it, meaning that right there is when I start talking. So what I can do is I can press this to get the specific frame. The more frames you have, the less this will move when you do things. And as you can see, I was right there. So I have to be right there. That is just below, just after 5. Can do that, and it should be around there. If I've done that, I can just go here, press S to cut, select this, press delete to remove it because I don't need that part. I can do that. I can then just make sure the sound is relatively close to where it should be.
Anthony,
Now
everyone,
if I
welcome
talk, it's
back
going
to
to add it
a
right. And yeah, I'm going to get rid of this audio file right there because it's distracting. Now once you have this, one thing you'll notice is if you cut this top part right here, so if I do that, only this top part gets cut. Meaning you have to go down here and you have to cut that as well, which can be a little bit tedious. So what I like to do is I like to group them. You can either select both of them and go here to group and create new, but as you can see there is a shortcut to just press G. So you select both, you press Control and select both of them, press G, and now they're a group. So if I were to cut that there, as you can see both of them gets cut. Even if I just select the top one, both of them will get cut. Press Ctrl Z to undo any things you didn't want to do. You can use this to move a bit faster. So by doing that, you can make it move a little bit faster. You can always make it by default a little bit faster if you wanted to. You can reset it as well. And yeah, if you want to move around, then you can just either zoom in and out with the scroller. Otherwise, you can press Shift and scroll, and that will move you around the video. Here's the frame you're on, and here's the preview. If you can't quite see what's happening here, then one thing you can do is you can click here at this preview, and you can change it. Usually, best full will do perfectly fine. Let's say you're maybe getting a bit of lagging while you're editing here, like this frame rate, it gets 3 dots afterwards. Then what you can do is you can just go here and decrease the quality. And you may not see it, but the quality did decrease a little bit. So each one of these are going to decrease the quality more. So if I go here and say quarter, then that will decrease the quality a lot, and I can't really see what's happening. And because I'm working with text, I want a relatively good quality, so preview full should be the lowest I should go. But since I can, I'm going to go best full. You can use this to go to the end and the beginning of the video. So one thing I do encounter quite a lot, as you can see there, the text is kind of small, and if we click here we can see a preview of it. As you can see, this is kind of what you will see, but you should remember that it is being viewed on mobile devices as well, especially if you upload it to YouTube, where a lot of people only watch YouTube videos with mobile devices. So one thing you want to do is, especially if you're working with text, or if you want to maybe add a funny effect, is we can cut this part, and let's say we want to zoom in here. Usually go through and see what you want to zoom specifically, but in this case we don't have to worry about that because it's just an example. If I click on this right there, then that will allow me to zoom in right here. By unchecking these two boxes, you can move this around freely, and as you can see here in the background, it does respond immediately. Take note that if you do that, then you won't see the difference happening, and that is because it will only affect this track, since this track right here is the only one that this effect is being done on. So take note for when you do things. You can also rotate it by clicking here, so maybe you want to add some rotation to the video, then you can. So yeah, this will do the width, this will do the height. If you don't like what you did, you can always reset it by saying restore. That will restore it. If you want to mirror it, you can say flip vertically or horizontally. If you want to keep the aspect ratio to what it should be, then as you can see, if you click this one right here, then aspect ratio stays closer. Also click that, and that will just help you keep it. That will make the entire thing zoom into that one spot. Usually doing that should work perfectly fine, so it depends on your preference. So in this case, I want this text to be relatively big, so I'm going to just zoom in. And you can use your arrow keys to make it a bit more specific. So in this case, I might want to do that, or even cut off that name there, so I just have that part. So now if I play it, then as you can see, there it moves. If you want to add some effects, so maybe you want to add a transition effect. So let's say we remove these parts, so we just delete, and because you might cut out a few things and you want to like add a transitioning effect so it looks a bit smoother, because otherwise it's going to look like this.
And then I think it does.
And as you can see, it just It just popped up.
Okay.
It didn't look natural. What you can do is you can zoom in, and you can do that. This right here will transition it, so as you can see, there's a transitioning. Take note that it will transition the sound as well, meaning the sound will fade out and new sound will fade in. Just like the video will fade out with a new video fading in. So if we play that
Import
again,
everything. I think it does come with fine.
as you can see, that looked a lot better and just a lot less confusing. You can change what's happening here, so then you can add more transitions. I usually don't mess around with this too much, but if you want to, then it's easy to add a quick transition. You can create your own with enough effort, but usually these will do. So if we take this default one right here, just drag it onto that part right there, and here you can modify it a bit if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. Now if we play it,
I think it does come with fine.
as you can see, that looked pretty cool. Let's say you want to add some text. Usually if you want to do comedy, adding text to video is pretty cool. One thing you can do is you can click here on open space and you can just say insert video track. By doing that, you can add more video elements. So let's go here and let's add some text. So you want to go to video effects, to media generators, and you want to choose something here. Usually legacy text should be perfectly fine. If you want animated text, you can go to titles and text. As you can see here, there's animated text. So if you wanted to maybe add some floating animation text, then you can. And here you can like say, remember to save. You can change the color right here if you wanted to. You can change the size, make it bold or less, or not bold. So let's make it, because it's a little bit big, so if we drag this over to the side, as you can see, a little bit big. What we want to do is we may want to just say 22, for example. That looks perfectly fine. If you do that,
BTN,
then as you can see,
select.
that's pretty cool.
There, so this is where.
But if you just want to add normal text, you can just drag and drop. Take note that if they don't have a transparent background like this one, then that will cause everything behind it to be black, or whatever color it is. You can remove that, of course. So if we go here, if we click there, then that's this scene video effects, so the generated media. Then here, as you can see, it says solid background. You can change that, so maybe you want the text to be transparent. Works perfectly fine. Want only the background to be transparent, works perfectly fine as well. But usually, you can just add a normal default text. And yeah, so there's some sample text. If you want to, we can modify it to say hello. Now you could move it around here if you wanted to, by going here and moving it with this. I usually find that to be incredibly tedious. So what I do is I go to placement and I move it around here. So you can see I can move it around, just try and keep it within the square, but it's not required. As long as you can see it here, it will work perfectly fine. You can change the properties. I usually don't mess with that too much, but you can. You can draw an outline. Usually if you have maybe one white background with white text, or maybe just any background in general, it's usually good to like add a black shadow or a white shadow depending on the color of your text. This will increase the width, so the more you increase the width, the more, as you can see, the more blah blah blah. So that's how you add text. You can shorten text by just doing that, or you can just cut it where you want to. Now, one thing I like to do a lot, because I make full tutorials or full courses, and that means I have to add maybe 50 or so courses together, and I have to keep track of them. So one thing I like to do is I like to make a note. So let's say here at minute 6, you could remind yourself that you have to maybe add a timestamp or something like that. Because in a lot of videos you'll see people saying, hey, if you don't want to watch this part right here, the actual video starts at X time. So what you can do is you can press M and you can say add timestamp. Now that note will be there until you click on it and say delete. So let's say you're here and finally the video starts and you have to add a timestamp. Now you don't have to go and search through the entire thing. You can just go here and say, I was here, and you can add that timestamp right there. So let's just add a few notes. Let's say you want to blur some text. One thing that I find myself having to do quite a lot sometimes is blur text. So let's take this part right here as an example. So to blur text, it's relatively simple. You click on both of these, and in here you can just press U to ungroup them, or you can go here and say group, and remove from group. As you can see, it's you. If you do that, then you can copy this one right here by pressing Ctrl C, or by, I guess, pressing copy right there. Here you can paste that video clip, so like that, by pressing Ctrl V, and if you want to, you can group all of them together again. Anyways, so to blur a part out, what you want to do is you want to go to this pan crop, and here you want to say mask. So if you say mask, then now it will only be a mask of what you see. So one thing I like to do is I like to go here, my bad. I like to do is I like to go here to, if I can just close this, video effects, and you can choose your blur, but usually just going by pixelate should work perfectly fine. Here you can choose your ones. Usually large for me specifically works fine. Take note that pixels can be unpixelated, so if you're going to blur a password, rather try and put a black bar over it than pixelate it, because people can unpixelate it. Anyways, you drag that onto this video clip, the top one, and now we can go back here, press on that. So here we have our little section that we may want to blur. So let's say we want to blur out this section right here, this block of code. What I can do is I can zoom in, and I can click on the mouse and I can move around. As you can see, this is the section I want to blur out. So I'm going to click on the square, this rectangle, and if you want to, you can choose a different way to draw it, but I usually find this one to be just easier. And as you can see right here on the screen, it does blur it out already. So if we go here, boom, now it's blurred out. If you want to modify the blur, you can just click on this effects button right here, and we can change the blur. So if you want to make it a bit more horizontally blurred, then you can. Less vertically, then you can. So that should work perfectly fine, and it should be difficult to unblur. And as you can see, now it is blurred, and everything that falls inside of that square will be blurred. So if you want to go back to project media because maybe you have to add something, just click here and you can drag and drop it. All of the things that's used in this project, including the text you added and all of that, will end up here. But if you want to speed something up, for example, if you play this, if you want to maybe do something specific, so let's say we want to cut this right here. Let's say you want to speed it up. What you can do is you can just cut here, and if we hold control, then we can just drag it. If you don't hold control while dragging it, then it will not work as you thought it might. But anyways, then we can bring that closer if we want to. And now if you play it, as you may have heard, I talk incredibly fast. We can remove the sound by just doing that, and then as you can see, it removed the sound. Or we can, if we ungroup this, so group, and we say remove from, then we can delete this. Also, if you want to change the sound velocity, then you can press V while focused on this, on an audio. Press that, and as you can see, there's V. I found the sound to be a little bit too soft, so what I did is I brought it up to this point right here. But what you can do is, let's say you want to make a specific sound, so like that. And now here it will take a dive to be softer and then go back to being loud. If you want to make it go softer instantly, you can do that. And yeah, that's how you can do that, but usually you won't have to worry about it. Also, if you ever come across this, as you can see maybe on my cursor, if you don't know how to fix that, just press D until you get a normal cursor again. So, once you have done that, let's say the video is done editing, you can go here, and as you can see, it doesn't quite work. So let's zoom in and see what's actually happening here. So let's click there, zoom in, hold control, just go down, zoom in a bit more. As you can see right here, they're overlapping. We don't really want that, not for the sound at least. So we can just go like that, delete, and as you can see there, that works perfectly fine. But since mine is a zoom in or a transition into type of thing, it doesn't seem to be viewing here. I'll have to recompress that, but that's fine. So if we go to my to right here. Then let's say here's another outro, we can use that one. So let's delete this outro. So as you can see, if we put this right here, then as you can see, it kind of blacks into or zooms or transitions into an actual outro. But the outros on YouTube shouldn't be this long. The outro on YouTube should only be about 20 seconds, as you can see here. We want this place to be zoomed in, so I'm going to put my cursor right there. I'm going to drag it so it's transitioning. And I want it to be around, nope, why did I do that? I want it to be around here. So if we look at that transition, we can also make the sound just a little bit lower, because we want to keep the sound relatively the same over the entire project. So at one point it's not super loud and hurts your ears, and at another point it's too soft, you have to turn up the sound, turn up the volume. You usually want to stay away from that, unless you're doing it for a joke, but otherwise try and stay away from that. So you can just make that a little bit softer, because as you can see, that is quite low, but it should work perfectly fine.
Video.
As you can see, it transitions into very nicely, in fact. Now, the reason why I said you don't want this here, so let me show you how to render a project while we're at it. Let's say we do that. It's going to render that project. So if we want to, that part of the project. So if we want to render it, we gotta go to File, Render As. Here, usually you can find your own ways, or your own thing you want to do. I usually find the best one to use to be Main Concept. As you can see, there's MP4 right there. As you can see, there's a lot of things here. You can go internet and whatnot. I just go for internet, and I'd say customize template. So you can customize this to be kind of whatever you need it to be. So in this case, I'm going to make mine 15 FPS. I'm going to call this text-based tutorial, because I'm going to create my own one and save it. And then here I want to say not just CPU, because CPU is a little bit slow. So what you want to do is you want to see if you have any of these, and you want to render them if they're available. Usually if you have a GPU, then you can select this a GPU, but I'm not quite sure what these are. You can just select that if you want to. That should make it a bit faster, but for in this case I'm just going to say CPU only. But if you can, and you know one is faster, then you can select the faster one. So in this case, you can also say what the quality should be. So here it can go 144. I'm not quite sure what quality that is. And yeah, that's all you actually need to do here. You can just say save and OK. As you can see, it's right there. You can store it and say only show favorites. As you can see, there it is. So now you never have to touch it again. You have it right there. And if you want to extract it, let's browse for a place to extract it. I'm going to extract it right here. And yeah, I'm just going to say save, and instead of untitled, I'm just going to say video name. So you just click on that and you say render. And as you can see, that render is incredibly quick. Rendering is never that fast unless the video is incredibly short. So let's open the folder and see what happened. If we play that video, as you can see, it's that part that was selected. This is the reason why I always say never keep that there. Once you're done using it, remove it. So we can just go there, drag it all the way to the start, because we don't want that. We want to get rid of it. So we just drag it to the start, zoom in if we can, and make sure it just doesn't have any more things it can do. As you can see, it's empty. Now if we go to file and say render, text-based tutorial, and we're just going to keep it on untitled, render, then yeah, this is about how long it's going to take to render. And yeah, depending on your CPU or graphics card strength, this may take a little bit longer or may be a bit shorter. So yeah, you can just wait, and here you can see the estimated time, and then you will have a video. That's the basics of editing a video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again in the next video.